Women on a Green Mission. Follow along as two friends document their unfurling permaculture journeys.
Join our chats each week where we will be sharing how we and others apply the ethics and principles of permaculture to our gardens and daily life.
We're no experts. We're at the start of our journey, learning and fumbling our way to a greener life. You're guaranteed to witness a few successes, plenty of failures, laughs and swearing. We'd love your company along the way.
You're listening to the Practical Permaculture Podcast with Jo Flintham and Elise Gallagher.
Hi, Elise.
Hey, Jo, how are you?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm good. So it's actually just past Christmas when we're recording this. So we've just had the silly season, and it's that funny time in between Christmas and New Year where nobody knows what day it is.
Oh, it is. It's totally silly, but in a good way. I don't know. I've always been a little bit, someone who really enjoys that Christmas and New Year period. Like, I'm not really super into Christmas or having massive parties on New Year, but I don't know. There's something really awesome. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like a bit of a vortex in those the days in between. It's kind of like you can get so much done, but if you don't do anything, that's okay as well. There's no guilt about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's total downtime.
I love it too. And it's always a time where you kind of, the hecticness of Christmas is over and you actually get to just enjoy being slow and everything like that before work starts again. So it's a nice kind of time of the year.
It is. It is.
And what have you been up to?
Oh my goodness, we've had so much going on. So this morning we spent a few hours refencing the dog fence because we have a Houdini dog Bridget, who kept sneaking out. So we had to redo the fence. No. But we weren't banking on the fact that it was going to be a little bit warm. So it got up to 35 pretty early on. So I've had to go in and have a quick shower and freshen up because, if I'd come on straight afterwards, I would have been covered in dirt and rusty pickets and all sorts of things. But we've had that going on. The garden's rocking at the moment. I got my a little bit late this year, but I got my corn in. I got some more rock melons in. I transplanted some capsicum yesterday. So we've got lots happening in the garden, and we had a bit of excitement. We had I don't know if I mentioned on a previous podcast, and you were here for that. We had the red belly. With the red belly black snake.
We did mention it. Yes, and we did mention it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. See, my brain's just memories. Phew. But, so, Cecil or Cedric, whatever we called him, I can't even remember that. Well, he moved inside. He moved in behind the dishwasher.
You're kidding me. Oh, my God. How did you notice? What happened?
Well, Mitch, our son, was unpacking the dishwasher, and Aunt and I had gone down the road to get something.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. Sorry, keep going. Keep going.
Oh, I love that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so Mitch rang and he's like, so I was unpacking the dishwasher and I looked down and I just saw this snake sort of come out from the side of the dishwasher and then go back in. And I went, he's coming through the doggy door. So I said, well, just keep an eye on it and watch it. And then he came out again and then did a U-turn and went back in. Because they're quite red bellies are quite timid snakes. So they're not going to come out and confront you.
So
called the snake catcher and had to ring around everyone because they're so busy this time of year and they do an amazing job and provide an amazing service, but there's not many of them around. It's not like it's a hugely lucrative career because a job could take 10 minutes or 5 hours, right? So but he was absolutely fantastic. Dan came out and couldn't find him.
So he's in the house still?
Well, what we think's happened is he's gone through this because we've got, our place, it's quite an old little farm cottagey type house. So we've got lots of nooks and crannies and little holes and things. So we think that he's gone into a hole which is into the wall cavity. So we've actually plugged that up and we think that he's made his way out. Well, I think I found him because yesterday I took the tarp off the top of the hot compost. And lo and behold, here's this huge red belly black snake.
Oh, good. Well, at least you kind of know where he is and he's outside. I could not cope with knowing there was a snake in my house. I'm terrible with snakes.
He was just, I think I'd say he's just been going along the wall and the doggy door was there and it was open and he went, well, I can go straight in. So I think he would have been quite happy to get back outside as well. But the irony is that we kept the dogs inside thinking, well, that will protect them
Yeah, they were
because I
safe.
don't want them to have an interaction with the snake. Like, I don't want the snake to hurt them or them to hurt the snake. So both. And here they are, just
Yeah.
lock them inside altogether for the day.
Oh my gosh.
But everyone is
Wow.
safe and alive and happy. So, but yeah, it was a bit of excitement for us.
Man. Well, we're down in Adelaide at the moment seeing family. So we kind of hoped we'd be down here at the beach every day, but it's been me borrowing clothes off my stepmom because it's so cold and it's windy and rainy. Today's the first day we've had like a beachy kind of day, but this morning it was freezing, like I was in a jumper. So we've just been playing board games, which has been nice, and catching up and just spending time together, lots of cups of tea, and yeah, we've been very lazy.
That's
Nothing as
nice.
extreme as snakes in the house.
Yeah, we've had a bit of an extreme time of it, but I think that's
Yeah.
that's really good too. We all need that for our soul, don't we? To be able to connect
Mm.
with family, and I like the cups of tea. It's that grounding,
Yeah, it's
nurturing,
so nice.
self care part, which is I love. I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely beautiful.
And I think we need this season before we get into our busy season of being on the farm and logistics of that. And that's going to be really hectic time for us. So I think it's nice just to have this kind of rest and digest period before we get into the mayhem of a block of land that needs everything done to it. So yeah,
Literally everything done. Yep.
literally everything done to it: power, water, infrastructure, fencing.
I think your ass is going to be on fire when you get up there. It's going to be
Oh
all
yeah,
systems go for
me
quite a
too.
while.
And it was funny. Oscar's like, "Oh, we'll do the fencing first and this and that." And my stepmom said, "Oh, how long do you anticipate it happening?" I was like, "Oh, we'll do the fence like the first weekend." Oscar's just looking at me like, "Oh my God, Elise, you've got no idea what we're in for, do you?" Like,
Yeah, that's like maybe like a couple of 100 meters at best if you're like seriously pumping.
yeah, 350 meters of fence line.
Yeah, that's gonna
That's what we'll be
take
doing.
that's gonna take a
Yeah.
while.
So we sat down and figured out how many strainer posts we need and how many star pickets and how much wire. And we were adding all that up yesterday. So we sat down, we started trying to plan what materials we'll need and what tools and delivery and that kind of stuff. So we've kind of started looking at logistics now. But
Which is exciting and terrifying at the same time.
yeah, like how do star pickets cost that much money? And how is our fence that's just like this simple wire fence going to cost us so much money?
Like,
But
how
anyway,
does
so
this
yeah,
stuff
that's us
add
at the
up?
moment. Crazy. Well, today we're going to be talking about another ethic. We're going to do people care.
Which I think is perfect for this time of year because it leads into
True.
exactly what we were talking about before. That
Yeah, true.
having that nice, I love that term, rest and digest time.
Mm,
It certainly feeds into that. But there's so much more to people care, isn't there?
yeah. Before we get too into it, let's just acknowledge where we're recording on. And so, where are you recording from today, Joe?
I'm at home and I'm on Wanneroo country.
I had to look mine up because I'm down in Glenelg in South Australia where my dad is, and here is the Kaurna people. That's their, actually, no, Kaurna land. There's 3 different nations that live down here. So, people care. We've kind of did a bit of research on this and we've broken it up into 3 chunks to kind of make it a bit more manageable. So, people care as in self, within yourself, people care within your family, and then people care within our community. So, they're kind of the 3 ways we're going to break this episode up to talk about people care. Did you want to start us off?
Let's talk about self-care because it all starts with us, right? So if we don't look after ourselves, then we are no good to anyone else. And I don't know, as a mum, how many times I've heard that, and I know you've heard that, and every mum out there's heard it when you're running yourself ragged trying to get everything done, and someone says, "Hey, you know what? Look after yourself, because if you don't look after you, how can you potentially, or possibly look after your kids? How can you look after your partner? How can you look after your family?" So, zone 00. In permaculture, we talk about zones. Self-care, or the
Yeah.
self, is zone 00. And that really resonates with me.
And you know, self-care in terms of not going and getting a manicure, like self-care in terms of we're eating right, we're getting enough sleep, we're moving our bodies, we're getting outside, we're slowing down, our routines are nourishing to us and our activities fill us up, these kind of things that we're talking about self-care.
That's it. It's the everyday stuff, isn't it? Like it's the how do you what are your habits and your routines, and how do you move through the day, and how are you showing up in the day for yourself? So, not that going and getting a manicure is, such a bad thing.
No, but it's not necessarily those kinds of elements of self-care. Jo loves her nails. But also, I guess, like in context of permaculture, so we talked like self-care as a mother. When you translate that across into a permaculture lens, if you're not firing on all cylinders, how can you advocate for the earth? How can you drag yourself out of bed and go do some gardening? How can you engage in some of the practices that you want to be engaging in? So when you think about it from that permy lens, making sure that you're okay and your zone 00 is looked after, and that you're not just physically well but mentally well, and you feel good within yourself and who you are, and also knowing your own values, because how can you engage with permaculture, I think, if you don't know what your own values are and who you are as a person? I think that's really important, so that you feel like when you are advocating and engaging, that where you sit in that space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And it is really important because, understanding what your values are, and, even if we talk about, ethics and principles, but understanding what they are, take permaculture out of it, of who am
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
and
yeah.
what do I show up for, and what is my legacy, and what lights me up, what's really important. And I think when we strip
Mm,
away all of that back and people really understand who they are at their core, it is far easier to then overlay that with permaculture, and the ethics and the principles, and understand
mm,
how they fit into that, and what the limits are as well. So when we're talking about like self-care, and especially that basic self-care of that every day of what are you doing for yourself every day to make sure that you're looking after yourself, it's also
mm.
understanding what your limits and your boundaries are. It is okay to
Yes,
say no. So
yes.
anyone listening to this, it is totally okay. Actually, it is mandatory. Screw it. It is mandatory to say no sometimes, because again, and I've seen this, even in permaculture, where people want to give of themselves. Where
Mm,
it's a community based thinking. It's we want to care for others, but if we don't have boundaries and we don't have limits for ourselves, then we're going to overgive, and then that depletes, and you can't, what's the saying? You can't pour from an empty cup, or can't drink from an empty cup. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And I think also knowing yourself and your values also stops you from mud flinging. So it's not like,
Whoa, mud
sometimes,
flinging.
yeah, like, when you something happens and you instantly want to just blame the government or blame someone else or blame circumstance or whatever it is in that situation. But if you can really understand yourself and know your values, I think that you then take responsibility for your actions, but also how you may contribute to a problem, or thinking about sustainability instead of being like, oh, it's Woolworth's fault for packaging everything in plastic, to then know what my values are and accept personal responsibility for that, and then change my actions and not just make it about somebody else's fuck up or somebody else's decision. I think that's really important when talking about zone 00.
Perspective, isn't it? Like it's being able
Mm.
to have a perspective of yourself. I don't know, is perspective the right word? Where you can maybe see yourself a little bit, not that we can see ourselves objectively, but maybe a little bit more objectively, and be able to, yeah, have a different perspective and a different understanding of how we are accountable and responsible. Yeah, self awareness, that's the word.
And I think also that personal responsibility, also in terms of understanding your limitations. So, yes, like you were saying no, but also being realistic with yourself about what's achievable, what's not achievable, what you're willing to sacrifice to make something happen, and when you're not willing to sacrifice because it's too expensive, too hard, it's not the right season of your life to be able to do that, because you don't want to run through life feeling guilty about decisions you're making because you're not enough, or you're not doing enough, or you can't be enough, or like that. I think that's really important too.
I love that you say that, because that's where we've been like for the last, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 months, is reassessing and reevaluating. So, as you know, we've stopped our business and we ended up going and getting full-time jobs and being in full-time employment. Never thought would happen again. But what we realized is that our season of our life, of where we are right now, this is what we need. And we had to get rid of that guilt and that self-judgment around why are we doing this? Are we failures in some way? And it wasn't that. It was just, we've hit that time in our life where we need to slow down. And by doing that, it's actually allowed us to refocus on what we want to achieve here on the property. And we're now doing the same thing there. We're paring a lot of things back. And, I've always had these huge ambitions of, we're going to do this and this and this and this. There's so many things that were going to happen. And then I've really had the time to sit with that and go, well, is it going to happen? And do I need it to or want it to happen? And we really now, and we're still going through it, we're really distilling down what it is that we want to achieve and what we can do, what our limits are. Fencing this morning, I was banging the pickets in, and Anthony just looked at me and he said, "Here, I'll do that." Like, very, very, very kindly, because I was just making a dog's breakfast of it, because my limitation was that, I just did not have the strength to do that today.
Yeah, but also shedding those things that aren't of value for you give you more space to take on the things that are of value. And I think, it's like, you can't say the wood for the trees kind of thing, whatever that analogy is. I'm not good with analogies. I always muck them up. But that concept of, you can't take on everything. So if you can shed some of the things, and the things that are more important, you will have more time for.
Yeah, get rid of the clutter. Get rid of the clutter, the brain clutter, the emotional clutter, and dare I say, community clutter as well. Because again, there's, like friends, there's friendships, there's friends for a reason, there's friends for a season, there's friends for a lifetime. And sometimes friendships come to a natural end, and we feel so obligated to hang on to those friendships or those connections or acquaintances. And we do backflips to try and make it work, but it never feels right. And it doesn't feel right from either side. If we were honest with each other and with the other person, not that we sort of say, hey, it's time for us to break up, we can't be friends anymore, but it is okay to let things just drift apart if it's not working for, for you or the other person anymore.
Yeah, it's not serving you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I guess, with zone 00 is the concept of self-sufficiency, self-reliance, those kind of concepts. Because, no man is an island. You can't operate in isolation. And this concept of total self-sufficiency, I think, can not be debunked necessarily, but be questioned with curiosity around whether we even want to be self sufficient. Like, yeah, maybe it's totally achievable, but do you want to be self sufficient in every way? Like, do you want to make your own furniture? Do you really want to generate all your power needs? Do you really want to cook everything that you've supplied yourself? Like, that's a big undertaking. Is that really something you A, need, and B, want?
Yeah, exactly. And you've got that side of it, and then you've got the connection side of it as well. So
Yes.
self-sufficiency implies sometimes, and again, it depends on the lens that you see it through, or the context, but it implies that you're on your own, or the two of
Mm,
you are on your own, or whatever that looks like. But we are emotional creatures, and we need love, and we need connection, and we need interaction, sometimes more than others. Sometimes we need a little bit of solitary time, and that's okay. But generally speaking, it is not something that you're going to do, on a day-to-day basis forever and ever. Amen. Like, it's, yeah, it's I suppose how can we change that lens then? Like if we, we're so sort of we've been hung up on self sufficiency, and I know like my old podcast was self sufficiency made simple, and I had a moment well and truly down, the road of that podcast, and I went, oh, I'm actually not talking about self sufficiency as a whole. I'm talking about, and this is something you raised earlier, which is great, self sufficiency in elements.
Self-sufficient for your summer salads or self-sufficient for your egg supply or whatever you choose to be self-sufficient in.
And it could be water. You could have a huge amount of tanks. It could be, you know, compost inputs or whatever. I mean, look, really, we could go down like we could be here for an hour talking about the self part of people care, but really we really want to talk about what does it look like on that practical level, and I think we've covered that. It's looking after yourself and being aware of where you're at and tapping into that you know um, um, emotional state that you're in, and navigating that in a way that serves you and supports you.
Yeah. So yeah, that then is a good segue into Hannah Maloney's concept of, instead of being self-sufficient, being community sufficient, which I think is a really cool thing. Like, you're not going to make your own shoes and your own furniture, but if we have surplus in something, can we swap? Can we trade? Can we barter? Or can we source it financially by paying for it within our local community and not rely on, you know, companies overseas, and, just try and keep it local and be self-sufficient within our little community or our state even, and think about it in that way. I think it's a lovely way to kind of reframe self-sufficiency.
I think it is too. And I think it's far more practical and it's far more doable. And when we feel that we're able to actually achieve, a part of that, even a little part of it,
Mm,
we're far more likely to do that. And
yeah.
there's all sorts of different ways that you can be, community sufficient. Like one of those was, sharing produce. Like I know here I've been to, and I haven't been to,
Yeah.
to one in a while because they generally happen on a weekday. But they do produce share, and it's not a swap. And that was something that when I first started going was really highlighted to me. It is not a swap. This is not a tit for tat. You have to bring something to gain something. It is bring
Mm,
what you can and take what you need.
yeah.
Sometimes you may go home with less than what you brought along for others. Sometimes you may go home with more. Sometimes you may go home with nothing at all because there's nothing there that you need. But you might
Need.
also then take
Yeah.
that for others as well and share it. You might go, oh, my friend down the road, I know they were looking for giant zucchinis this time of year because everyone has giant zucchinis
Yeah.
this time of year.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
or whatever that looks like. So there's lots of different ways that with the overabundance of produce this time of year that you can do with that.
Mm. Before we get too far down the community path, jumping back down a level, I guess, or more micro level, is family. So people care, your immediate family and little unit. So we kind of brainstormed. I think this will be quite a quick, short little segment, but spending time with each other, being present, making space in your day to connect, whether that's through routines, cups of tea in the morning, cup of coffee, walking around your property or your neighborhood and observing and interacting, sharing meals, making family and connection a priority over other things. That's kind of the crux, I think, of that element of people care.
Yeah, and I think the prioritizing family over other distractions is such a big one for me
Yeah.
because the amount of times, and
So hard.
totally guilty of it, but we will all be sitting there in the same room. We haven't seen each other all day. We haven't connected. We haven't really had any sort of meaningful engagement. And we're sitting there on a bloody device. We're looking into
Yeah.
the black mirror and it's like, what are we doing? Like, this is ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
just being aware. Look, it's not to say that, you can't go down the social media rabbit hole or whatever, but just be aware of what your actions are and prioritize the things that are important to you and to those around you.
And just carving out pockets of time where that is the most important thing over anything else, I think, is the key to that. Because let's be honest, if I spent all day, every day with my husband and children, I'd go stir crazy.
Yeah, we need that. See, we're going to circle back to that self care part. You know that
Yes.
you need those routines of of looking
Yeah.
after yourself.
Okay, so going back to community sufficiency, we started talking about it before, but circling back, we got ahead of ourselves, Jo.
Us.
No, serious? Getting ahead of ourselves. um, yeah, so the idea that no man is an island and that we need people around us, and that idea of community sufficiency, because to be able to provide for ourselves and our family within our community, I think is such an amazing, innovative idea. Probably not innovative, I'm sure it's been around for time immortal, but to think about things that way in the day and age that we live in, I think is really important.
Old is new again, right? Like everything gets reinvented and rehashed, and this is what's happening now. Is we're rediscovering because we've lost it to a degree, or maybe not lost. Maybe isn't the right term, but we have not prioritized it to a degree. So now we're rediscovering how good this is, and
I think we have lost it. I think we've lost touch with it. I think we've totally lost that thread in our Western culture.
think that yeah connection between like the community elements and people within the community
Mm-hmm.
and those groups and
Mm-hmm.
those connections. Yeah,
Yeah, there was a quote I came across. Let me see if it's here. Oh, I didn't copy and paste it, but it was something about the fact that our current systems are so focused on profit above all else that we've lost that community sense and the value of people, and that we literally put the value of money over people, and how sad that is, essentially.
it really is. It's so um yeah, it's basically we miss the point as
Yeah,
humans. Like when we are
we've put
prioritizing
put the cart
profits.
before the horse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't take money with you when you go. Your money isn't
Mm,
your legacy. Your legacy
mm,
is the people that you leave behind, the good that you've done in the world. Um, Money
mm,
is just bits of paper, really. I
mm.
mean, they're important
Yeah.
bits of paper, and when you don't have them, you really know about it. And I'm oversimplifying it completely, but
Yeah.
if you've got your people around you, if you've got good connections, you've got those friendships, you've got some sort of community, then you're richer than
Yeah.
someone who doesn't. And, from someone who has been broke, I was like, digging around the lounge for like my 5 cent pieces kind of broke. Money was incredibly important and it was all encompassing because without it,
Mm.
I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't put food on my table. This is well before permaculture days. Had I have known then what I know now, I would have been growing my own. Like this is, even before I was into growing any sort of garden or food, I'd go out and sit outside and
Mm.
enjoy the backyard. But there was no point that I thought, hey, let's grow some food. But had
Mm.
I have thought that way, I would have connected with other people who were doing that as well. And we could have done that
Yeah.
together and we could have built each other up. And that's part of community.
Mm. I was reading an article in preparation for talking about this, and it said if we can recognize that a greater wisdom lies within a group of people, we can work with others to bring about the best outcomes for all involved. The permaculture approach is a focus on positives, the opportunities that exist rather than the obstacles, even in the most desperate situations. And I thought that
Yes,
was really lovely to sum up that concept of people care.
it is. That is such a beautiful and true sentiment.
And the power of collectiveness. You know what I mean? There's only so much can happen in isolation, that you actually need that connection and community to gain momentum and to get things done and for things to be achieved.
Yeah. On so many levels, like on the
Mm,
physical level of like a
yeah.
perma blitz of everyone getting in there and getting stuck in, but from the emotional
Mm,
level, it's sometimes you just need someone to give you a hug and say, I get you, I understand, and it's okay. Or it's
yeah.
shit and it's not okay, but I acknowledge that with you. I'll just stand here with you and it'll be shit
Yeah.
together. And that's okay. That's just life. But
Yeah.
you can't do that in isolation.
Mm. And I love the fact that all the ethics obviously interrelate, and that when we care for the earth, really we're caring for people too.
Mm-hmm.
The benefits of caring for the earth have this flow on effect for people. Like if we care for our water systems and our food systems, we're actually caring for people.
Well, we are the earth. We're part of the earth, just like every other
Yeah.
living being. So therefore, yeah, when we care for ourselves, we care for the earth. When we truly care for ourselves, not when we care for ourselves and we just look after number one on
Care about ourselves.
About ourselves. That's
versus
it.
For ourselves.
That's it. I'm sure our listeners get what I'm trying to say there. But yeah, that's exactly it. Like it's it's integrated. It's circular.
There are some experts in this field that I'd like to kind of point people in the direction of, who are very big into people care and social permaculture. So Robin Francis, Robin Clayfield, Libby McNamara, they're like the big names for me that pop out when talking about people care and social permaculture. There's lots of little organizations too, like the Permaculture Women's Guild. Morag Gamble has a few things going on. So yeah, there's lots out there. And there's a quote from Luby that I know that you will definitely relate to, Joe, just as much as I did, because this is how we came to permaculture. And the quote was, people come into permaculture thinking, I'd like to grow more vegetables, but then move towards making better dietary choices, communicating more clearly with friends and family, and finding a new path in life. Permaculture is about resilience and emotional well-being, and about being part of the local community and scaling it up, and about finding your own unique voice. And I thought that was so true, because that's how we came to our PDC, thinking we were going to learn how to grow better carrots.
Yeah.
And look where we are now.
It is all encompassing, and I know that we've talked about that before, but it is it does integrate into everything in your life, in your world. It's your thoughts, it's your behaviors, it's your actions, it's the garden as well, but it's just so much more than that. And I think that's a really apt quote from Luby. Yep.
Yeah. Probably a good place to end the episode, hey?
I think so. I think we've covered off quite a bit.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Permaculture podcast. Don't forget to join us on our Facebook group to continue the conversation and share some resources. We hope that this has given you some inspiration and confidence and helped you in your Permi journey.
Head to the show notes for all the resources mentioned in today's episode. And if you like this podcast, please remember to subscribe, rate and share. It really does help us be found by other budding Permies. And if you didn't like the episode, well, we're sure that you'll find something else out there to listen to. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.